between 90 to 200%. The
Jesus.
overall cost of attrition, which is people leaving your organization, your team, your business, is staggering.
My supervisor is the director of the clinic. And this is how you're talking to a client who's in distress, getting angry at them and giving them an attitude. Welcome to Evolve Ventures, the one place where leaders like you can dependably go to shift your consciousness to unlimited potential. I am your host, Bianca Thomas.
And I am your host, Emilia Smith. And we're excited for this episode. So before we jump into this episode today, episode number 93, Poor Leadership is Costing You More Than You Think. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to go back and listen to episode number 92, Why Women Are Primed to Be Better Leaders. That definitely kicked up some dust. We got some great feedback on that. And it really certainly, reshaped the frame that a lot of us currently hold without consciously knowing. So if you haven't taken a listen, jump back to that. But let's jump into today's episode, which we're going to ground in one story that I'm excited to share with all of our listeners, but definitely to be very vulnerable and honest, a little nervous. And the why underneath it is because it infuriates me so much to know that this is just the top of what my experience has been. And to know, not about necessarily me, but to know that there's so much of this out there, and that every single day, the subjugation of this, the toxicity of poor leadership, and I'll call it that, but it's far worse than truly that. It happens every day. It happens around the world. It happens in our unconscious biases that we host every single day. And so my goal is to, by sharing my story, to give voice to all of the people that have experienced this, and also empower those in my storytelling to come forward with your stories, so that with that together, we can reshape this world from this lens. So for those of you who haven't really heard a little bit about this aspect of my former past. So in a past life, I was a realtor, a real estate agent. For anyone who's not familiar with necessarily that industry, you wear so many different hats, guiding people into making one of the biggest decisions of their entire lives, being the investment of a home, right? And I worked predominantly in the luxury market. So houses in the United States that were over $600,000 was deemed luxury in that area that I worked in. And so that was, for a young female entrepreneur, really exciting. However, the way that I started was under someone with more experience, just so happened to be a male. And initially, when I started, I was really grateful because I got the experience of working with clients that maybe wouldn't have looked at a woman such as myself, or taken myself seriously, because I am a woman and because I am quote unquote young. So how could I possibly understand some of the challenges that go into purchasing a home? Now I get that, and I get how I'm up against that, right? When I first went into that industry, and per all other industries, the odds were pretty much stacked against me, right? You don't have enough experience. You're too beautiful. You're too this. You don't really know what you're talking about, even though you spend more hours studying and reprocessing your experiences than anyone who has 40 years experience on you. But, young gal like me doesn't get that kind of credit. So anyways, I was following at the time this leader of mine who was trying to show me quote unquote the ropes of the real estate industry. Along the way, I'm trying to ask questions as I'm learning, trying to understand how to be the best realtor I could possibly be, having service being at the core element, the core nature of who I am, and wanting to make sure I'm serving my clients, really putting them in a place, an environment that makes them feel so safe, so valued, so loved, so respected, truly a sense of home.
Mm.
And shortly, I came to realize how toxic that industry had been for me and for personalities like myself, because in this one experience, which was a testament to many other experiences, was a lot of comments like this. Oh, you don't really want to work with that person because of, and then you fill in the blank, right? There started to be an accumulation of knowledge of you don't work with these people or you avoid these types of people because of XYZ, because you won't get the commission, because they might make your job harder, because they might actually make you work, right? Fun fact, a lot of people don't actually want to work for what they're earning. And that was very different from me. I wanted to learn, I wanted to earn my keep, right? I wanted to genuinely work hard and do the above and beyond that a lot of people were trying to minimize in their role. And so it's distinctly one instance I remember being in an interaction with, at the time, this leader of mine. And we had been on our way or just about before going into a meeting with a family that was of Indian descent. And I remember at the time on our way to that meeting, having words very closely, if not to this exact verbiage, saying, oh, you don't want to work with them. The Indians are so tough to deal with. And almost in a way that was so degrading and demoralizing that in the moment I was like, what did you just say? What just came out of your mouth? And how is that okay to even be a thought? And I remember in that moment taking stock and saying, who is this person that for the last 6 or so months I've been following and taking guidance from and learning, quote unquote, the ropes from? All of my reality shifted after that moment. I thought this person was a great person. I highly had a lot of respect for this person. I appreciated their quote unquote leadership. All of that came crumbling down in that moment. Why? Because number one, of the sheer audacity that that person has developed, that thought, that maybe one negative experience that he had experienced with someone was blanketed to every single other person of maybe a similar look, distinctiveness, whatever it was, of other people. And how that stereotype left out all of the other nuances and differences between other individuals who might look, sound, seem similar in that relationship. Like, and to the extent where you want to pull away your service because of this type of person, because they actually made you work for what you have, because they actually wanted things a specific way and they weren't as easy on you as maybe another party. So now you're telling me, as someone who's trying to learn and grow, what avenues not to go down because that was hard for you, rather than what I do believe would have really benefited is share one's experience, take out the racism, and actually just share an insight. But that didn't happen. And instead, that got passed down to me of you don't want to work with these types of people because they're tough to deal with, because they don't share this belief, because they don't share this ideal, because when they move in, and at the time we were going to show a house that was, I think it was just under $1 million. That was so big enough you could have 3 families live in it. And sure enough, the family that had shown up was multiple family members, not only just the immediate family, it was the cousins, it was the grandparents, it was the aunts, it was the uncles of this couple that was considering. It wasn't just a couple that was considering this house. It was the entire family unit, generations that were considering this investment. And I saw that. My perspective was like, oh, it wasn't they're a pain in my butt. They're so tough to deal with. It was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I've never experienced this before. Because in
Mm.
my culture, in my society, it's one person buying a house. All of the family units have been broken down so that no one is connected or asking their family units of like, this is a major life decision that's going to impact our entire family and likely our generation. Do you like it? What do you think about this house? Do you see all of us coming in and having a really beautiful celebration together in this? And I
Mm.
saw it as that. I saw it as, wow, I don't see that often. That is really, really cool. And was a mirror to me in the moment of why don't I have more people like this in my life? And in that moment, it was so challenging for me to swallow that this poor leadership that was directing me of how I should and should not conduct what would be my future business, my future decisions, my future life. This poor leadership was instilling racism and even more beyond that. That was entirely unfair for that leadership to have passed down to me. It was completely inappropriate, completely uncalled for. And if I could eradicate that from that person's consciousness, I would, because I can only imagine the suffering that has been caused as a result of that poor leadership. And it infuriates me. And so I want to bring this around full circle. What I ended up doing was actually doing more business with those quote unquote types of people because I didn't believe this bullshit. And apologies, censorship there. I didn't believe this BS that was being fed to me. And I questioned it because my interaction with people of this quote unquote descent was the complete opposite of that.
Mm.
Kind, loving, caring. I didn't necessarily blanket that to a whole people. I made sure that my interactions were my own and my insights from that dictated my experience, not someone else's. That projection of that belief, my experience didn't get passed on to someone else, but rather I sought out my own experience, my own leadership, my own engagements with those quote unquote types of people. And so I told Bianca you this story where I actually we ended up selling it to them, which I was so
Mm.
excited for. And it was like kind of that rebel moment of me, like, don't you ever dare tell me what I should not do and who I should not engage with, because that is like the greatest indicator of poor leadership, where you're projecting your beliefs very black and white onto someone else, and definitely someone of a different generation that's taking advantage of someone's growth in a way that's actually not serving the world. So what I did afterwards was learn about their culture, ask them different questions, even where it made me feel super uncomfortable. I didn't understand certain aspects of their culture. And so I engaged out of curiosity, humility, and from a loving place. And matter of factly, they were so excited. They invited me to the welcome home, which like I told you, Bianca, I don't remember what they had called it, but they had shared with me it was like a hanging of dried grass on their front door. They were having family
Mm.
come over. It was a beautiful ceremony. Genuinely, it was. I saw their grandparents, the grandchildren, everyone come in. And that poor leader that had told me that would have never been invited to that type of honoring of such a big decision in that family.
Probably also
But
never would have made this sale because his inherent racism they would have caught onto it and they would have felt it.
yeah, exactly. So all in all, I share that experience because I know I'm not the only one that's
Mm.
experienced poor leadership. And yes, I don't even want to say an extreme. This is just reality, right? This happens all over the place, but it's a testament to how much poor leadership is happening all around us. And from a business perspective, strictly speaking, how negatively that's impacting us all and how much that's costing every single entrepreneur, individual, business owner, anyone, how much that's actually costing you more than you could ever possibly fathom. Because what happened there is I not only left that company, that organization shortly thereafter, but I made sure to never engage and have them benefit off of my growth again. And so, yes, that's a boundary that I will never, ever have anyone cross again because it was frankly flat out wrong. But I also now understand this. The insight from that experience is this big fat claim of the fact that it is your responsibility to identify as a leader and take ownership of your life so that you're promoting things that do serve the world. And doing so from a place of humility, ownership, and courage. I can't wait to make sure that I pass on the opposite of that message of how much my experience was so incredible. And frankly, by the story, passing on that experience is what gives legs in life to the opposite of what I was told by poor leadership. So, Bianca, I know you and I are so passionate about this. And I know this month in particular, we're going to be talking about all things leadership in different avenues, and especially when it comes to the evolved version of leadership. In our episodes that we already have out there points to that. But with that being said, I know it costs a lot for business leaders to have this type of poor leadership in it. Have you experienced anything like that, or anything that you want to kind of bring forward in that?
Almost every single job that I have left has been fundamentally due to poor leadership. I mean, the last job that I worked, so I was working as a clinician at this company, and I don't want to drop the name, but I was working at this company as a clinician, and one of my clients was having a, what's the word? She was just really going through it and was expressing to me the fact that she did not know if she was going to stay safe when she went home, meaning she was probably going to self-harm and was probably going to attempt to take her life. And when that happened in the state of Massachusetts, you have to put a Section 12 on this person. And a Section 12 basically means the person gets taken to the hospital, they get a psychiatric evaluation, and they have to stay for 3 days in at least 72 hours in the hospital to make sure that they're safe. And I called my supervisor in because that's part of what I had to do. I had to call my supervisor. So I call my supervisor and I send her a message and I said, she's not safe. Can you come in here? Like, we need to put a Section 12. And now I'm not able to do it at that company. My supervisor had to do it. So my supervisor comes into my office, and this person, the client of mine, was Hispanic. She was Latina, and she was gay. And she is very like outwardly gay. And my client, felt stigmatized against. She said, the police are going to hurt me. The police are going to try to do this, this, and this to me. I don't want all these white people around me, clearly showing that she has had negative altercations with white people, probably being racist towards her and prejudiced towards her. So my supervisor comes in, and this moment is the reason I left this job and is the reason I looked for a new job. My client is in a state of panic. My client is clearly very scared. Her wife found my phone number, which I don't know how, but she found my phone number and is calling me, screaming, saying, what is going on? What is going on? So my supervisor comes in. My client is clearly very distraught, very overwhelmed, and has her head down in her lap and is shaking. And my supervisor is this older, heavy-set white woman and says, so what's the problem? What's going on? And my client says, nothing. Please, I'm fine. Just leave me alone. My supervisor gets an attitude and says, well, I'm just trying to help you. And my face went flush red in that moment, and my heart started pounding and I started shaking. And I know that happens when I get triggered. And I just looked at her thinking, are you kidding me? This is how you interact with a client who's clearly in a state of panic when your previous roles were working in inpatient emergency services, meaning that you were dealing with people dealing with crises coming in. You are the director of the clinic. My supervisor is the director of the clinic. And this is how you're talking to a client who's in distress, getting angry at them and giving them an attitude. But it was in that moment that I decided, I'm like, I'm leaving. There's no way I'm working for someone like this. No way. I would never act like that with a client. I would never act like that with anybody. But yet my direct supervisor is acting like that. This is why it is so important for leaders to understand how they are acting, how they are doing. What are the qualities and the characteristics that they possess? I was one of the top clinicians at that job, and they directly told me that. They said, your clients are having the greatest output. Your clients are having the best turnaround rate. And every single one of them that comes in looks so excited and happy to be there because they get to see you. And they tell us this. I was one of the only ones doing evidence-based treatments, meaning the only one actually doing my job. And that's another story for another episode. But I was one of the top clinicians at that job. And because of the behavior of this supervisor, I left and went to work for their competition. That is the quality, that is the cost of poor leadership. You will lose top people. And that's costing you millions of dollars, if not more. Billions.
Yeah, B, there is a stat that you and I looked at before this, and it blew our mind.
Yeah.
So a couple stats that we're going to pull in is for all of our numbers people, all the business leaders that really want to look at what is the data underneath this stuff and how important this data is to you is for you to assess, because ultimately it's the cost, right? $1.8 trillion is lost every year, according to a HubSpot research that we'll put a link to in the show notes. $1.8 trillion is lost every single year due to productivity issues within teams and within organizations, right? That is just a testament to, like, if you're not feeling like you can belong, you're not going to be, period, as productive. Replacement costs in terms of when it comes to retaining top talent. So Bianca and I, in our companies, previous organizations, we were top talent. Some organizations gave us that. Some people gave us that and said, this, you're doing an amazing job. Some were so threatened by our success that they would never give us that, rather wanted to keep us small. The replacement costs on an average organization is approximately 50 to 60% an average employee salary, with overall costs, if someone were to leave your organization, between 90 to 200%.
Jesus.
Overall cost of attrition, which is people leaving your organization, your team, your business, is staggering. You think it's hard to get top talent? It is so much harder to retain it. Why? Because when you look at that, when you look at the core of both Bianca and I's experiences, and this is just one of 1,000 she and I have had, and it's just one of trillions that other people have had, which is why these numbers are what they are. Poor leadership is costing infinite measures. And these are just some of the metrics that are being tracked, that are being looked at, because why this is what, quote unquote, we care about. The impact is much larger. Studies show it's the 3 top reasons why top talent like Bianca and I will continuously leave and look for a better place. And if there's enough of that, we will start our own place. Is the lack of recognition, a lack of clear direction, and poor culture. Now you could look at all 3 of those things and you could say Bianca and Emilia experienced this with a blindfold on. Like hands down in both of those experiences. And what did that cost the business? I am going to say it flat out, millions of dollars. That costed the business millions of dollars. Why? Because we did not stick around and help to generate money. It did not help to generate revenues for the business, did not help to generate a team culture, client retention, did not help with any of that. Bianca and I, who we are helping to build. We are builders at our core. We will strive to be better every single day. Not everyone is like that, period. And so if it's costing organizations to keep people like us, imagine what it's costing to keep people that are like just not going to tolerate some of the BS that she and I both did, because there was a time between both you and I's experience and us leaving. Other people are just peace out, bye. Or, which is even worse for our business, they'll actually stay because maybe good benefits or whatever. And then to that $1.8 trillion lost in productivity, those are people staying that are not clear on the mission, but would rather enjoy the benefits and the rewards that organizations are giving, but have lower productivity, be less engaged with the culture, not really show up as their authentic self. And what that is costing because of poor leadership. We won't even get into that in this episode, but for sure, stay tuned to our other episodes as we're going to dig deeper into some of this stuff, because we believe that if we can help at this level where there's poor leadership, that impacts so many others, right? Because people are employed by leaders. People have jobs because there are businesses, right? Money's coming in and out because of the need for value exchange. And so that's pretty much all I have on this episode for right now, because this is definitely heavy. Bianca, do you have anything before we dive into episode suggestions and key takeaways?
Yeah, I think the final thing that I'll say is this is not to toot Emilia and I's horns, but we invest time every single day learning about leadership, learning about the positive qualities of leadership, learning how to be the best women and just people that we can be, so that our company, so that the people who we onboard to be on our team feel like they matter, feel like they can talk to us, feel like I'm being led by 2 people who actually have core values, beliefs, and aspirations that are good, for lack of a better word. I mean, my supervisor in that experience and Emilia's clearly had terrible values, clearly had terrible belief systems to make them believe that that was okay behavior.
Yeah.
If you are not investing time into becoming a better leader, if you are not having the courage to notice your own BS and to hold that mirror up to your face and saying, where am I messing up? You are going to lose top talent. Emilia and I are the example. Emilia alone is selling $1 million houses. Like, millions and millions and millions of dollars that one company lost because of the comments of one ignorant person.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think that this is affecting major corporations with hundreds and thousands of employees?
Mm.
It you as the leader make the greatest impact. If you can't hold the mirror up to your face and say, how am I showing up? How are my people seeing me? And what are the qualities and traits that I possess? And if you're not willing to change, you are going to fail. Your business will crumble, and your organization and all of the people that work for you are going to go away. And it will be your fault.
For sure. That's a huge takeaway. One of my top takeaways for sure is starting to realize, like, building where they are. I think that where I've been a poor leader, and again, to your point, having the humility to hold up that mirror to yourself and say, I take ownership for this. Wherever I've been a poor leader in the past, I certainly won't make that mistake again. And if I do, I'll take ownership. But it was from not building where people were at. I wasn't aware, and I didn't have the humility to try to understand where people truly are at. Rather, I just started to build from where I was at and then go from there. It's not fair. It's not good leadership. It's not quality, evolved leadership. My biggest takeaway from this episode and from doing some of the research that we did within this was to build from where they are. If my leader in that scenario had asked me instead, what's your experience like? What do you think is going to happen here? And ask me some of those questions to say, like, oh, what are some of the elements that you're considering as we go into this deal, as we go into showing this home? What are some of the experiences that you want to bring forward? Some of the lessons that you've learned in your experience? What do you think would be beneficial from a communication style or whatnot? If those questions were asked, that would be building from where I was at, because I was the quote unquote inexperienced one, right? But no. This leader, just like just like Bianca's supervisor, built from where they were at. And so the experience that you and I were having was from where that person's level of leadership was at, which ironically, you and I's leadership was actually higher than both of those individuals combined.
You know
And
what
we
the
were quote
sad
unquote
part is too?
inexperienced. Yeah.
That person quit therapy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of that person's reaction, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not only is it costing you top talent, but it's also costing you the people that you could serve. And that's the cold, hard truth. But we're saying it in a loving way so that you wake up and that you help others around you wake up, because the world is very much sleeping on this and not taking ownership for this. And Bianca and I are experiencing it left and right. And we want to be able to help people. And those who have humility can reach out to us and say, where might we be sleeping on our poor leadership? And where aren't we holding up the mirrors? That's something that we do for our clients. And one thing that we've already attested to, but the biggest takeaway that we would have our community walk away with, and we would encourage you all to contemplate, is the courage, the humility, and that ownership capacity, right? The big fat claim that we mentioned earlier, it's your responsibility to identify as a leader. If you don't identify it, you're never going to be reflecting on how you are showing up in this world. Bianca and I are investing every single day a large chunk of our time, energy, and resources and money to be better humans, even if that makes us feel like crap in the present about ourselves, because what we thought reality was or what we thought good leadership is, that evolves. We have to be willing to evolve with it. And so to end this, before we go into episode suggestions, with a proverb that Bianca and I both love and adore and admire so much, is from an ancient African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to be in a spot where you actually want to go far, go with a team, recruit a team, retain a team, and be a better leader. I paraphrased it, but
yeah, I was going to say you paraphrased that, but
anyways, you get the point. So, okay. That being said, Bianca, what are your top 3 episode suggestions? Girl can't be perfect over here. Not trying to, but here we go. What are your top 3 episode suggestions?
Episode 30, how to set realistic goals you can actually achieve. 49, are you aligned? The alignment dial. And number 50, how to find your tribe.
My top 3 are 80. If you like this episode, for sure, what to do when it doesn't feel right. This attests to not only business leaders, but also their employees. What to do when it doesn't feel right helps you understand that gut feeling that you have kicking you in the stomach, like Bianca and I both had in that moment, is where the truth lies. You're not aligned with this organization. You're not aligned in this position. You're not aligned, in this role. Do something about it. Don't just sit there and let that boil over and take zero responsibility. Episode number 61, how to integrate your dreams with your current job. I don't care if you're a business owner. It might not feel like your dream job. And it might be because you're living a little bit outside of alignment with your dreams and your job. How to integrate those can make a huge shift for so many people that you employ. And then number 54, what is modern day leadership? Bianca and I take an interesting approach to that episode that is definitely not mainstream, but that's our perspective. And speaking from a millennial generation, we believe that those would be really powerful next episode listens for you if you really resonated or felt kicked in the gut from this episode. So
it was an intense episode.
Yeah, it was for sure. So thank you for hanging in there with us. This was tough. We are giving it to raw and real. We don't, shy away from that. And we appreciate if this episode really did resonate with you or had a kick in the gut because you or someone is experiencing this or has experienced this, and you want to make sure that they feel seen, heard, and valued. Share this with someone that you love and care about, because you never know when you send a podcast like this, what that could spark in someone's life. If Bianca and I stayed in that current role that we had when we knew it wasn't right for us, when we knew we were being subjugated to misogyny, prejudice, racism, like you name it.
Ignorance.
Ignorance, sheer ignorance and apathy. We were by large and part of the problem rather than taking a stand and getting out of that and saying, you can figure it out. I'm not going to be a part of this, That's what we ask.
So please share this with someone you love, someone you care about. Also, please give us a review. We haven't been seeing too many of those come in, and it really helps us to build momentum and to see everyone's feedback. And, it gets more people listening to the show. So please leave us a review. We love hearing from all of you. So reach out to Emilia and I at Evolve with Emilia or Evolve with Bianca. And we host the live Instagram IG lives every Friday at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. So 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be on the lookout for those. Thank you all so much. And we will talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.